morning. Welcome to Viking Preparedness. I am Pastor Joe Fox. So this is going to be a video response to Steve over at Prepping in Progress, to a video he just did. And I think it was called something like, "When you die, we're splitting up your stuff," or something like that. I'm going to get this adjusted a little bit more. And it got me thinking. And because it's a VR, and when I do a VR, I like to have people check out new channels, right? Because we're always looking for another channel to watch. This will eventually end up on the YouTubes. All right, so as I recall, Steve and his special guest were talking about mags, which we call crews, right? And the crew, I guess we should start there. A crew, because there are different definitions of mags, but really they were talking about crews. A crew is those people you plan on coming together with physically during super bad times. We are all moving to your ranch and we're going to hang out. We're all moving to Shofar Mountain and we're going to hang out. We're all moving to this piece of the national forest and we're going to hang out. We're all getting on John's boat and pushing out to the Gulf. Whatever. We're coming together as a group for all the benefits that being together as a group provides. I might do a part 2. It'll probably just be on Patreon, where I take that concept a little further. But right now I want to get to when you die, we're splitting up your stuff, and kind of thoughts off of that video. So the crew, the mag, for what most people refer to as a mag, is those people who are going to be together. Not the people you meet with once a month and, take a hike or whatever. But, hey, I need to get some shut-eye. Can you pull security while I'm doing that? Yes. That's your crew. I get it. Most of y'all don't have a crew. Of those that have a crew, I would say the majority of those crews are family. Meaning somebody about, it's steep right here, somebody about my age with adult children, with families, and they're all going to get together somewhere. The bonanza model, right? And then for the more sophisticated crews, it's actual other people and their families. Yeah, I'm going to have to turn this into a series on Patreon, because I just thought of another thing that I want to talk about, and that's how do you delineate who gets to come. But that's another thing. What the heck is that? Oh, I know what that is. Can you guys see that? I put that up on the way up. I'll show you when we go past it. You die, we're splitting up your stuff. As I recall, Steve was talking about it's a steeper hill than it looks on video. Steve was talking about if someone's in your crew and they decide to leave, what do you do with the stuff that they contributed to the crew, or that was at the crew's the team's central location? Do they get to keep it? No, yes. If yes, how much? How does that work? And they went over that. There's a lot of ways to do this. The first time I ever came in contact with this concept in a civilian sense because it was a phrase we used to use in Special Forces a lot. When you die, we're splitting up your stuff, and I'm getting your Rolex. Dibs on the knife. The Randall. The first time I came to this in the context of prepper groups was I was feeling some people out, and they were checking me out with the idea of forming we called them then, survival team of families who would agree to band together in times of trouble for the mutual benefit of all involved families. And so we were in the feeling out process. I was at a little mini, mildly private camp out, and the one guy was bitter about the mag he had just left. And let me sit this down and take my hood off now that I've warmed up. He had been in a mag, and they had gone together, and I don't know the land situation. I think one member on their mag had the land, and but it was raw, pretty much undeveloped land, and they had all built cabins on it, for their families to come to in times of trouble. And they also had built something approximating a warehouse that they had stored vital supplies at, that they then would not have to transport to the location when things got bad. And for whatever reason, this guy had a falling out with his mag, the guy that I'm sitting there talking to. And man, he was bitter. It just dripped off of him. And they gave him all his stuff back, that he had in the warehouse and everything. But they said, hey, you can't have the cabin back because we helped you build the cabin with materials we all scrounged. And he said, nope, that's my cabin. It's always been known as my cabin. I get my cabin. And he basically went, cut the padlock on the fence, brought in some kind of bulldozer and flatbed thing, maybe a skid steer, and took his cabin. But when he took his cabin, because he had to do it fast when nobody was there or something, he basically destroyed his cabin. And so he left it there in a pile. He didn't go there to destroy it, but in the process of trying to get it, he destroyed it. So he just left it there. So to his former team's perspective, he broke into the place and smashed up his cabin out of spite. Ooh. Find it. Find it. Where is he? I smell a cigarette. Could be going a long way. Where is it? This could be one of those videos where you see me drop the camera and my coffee, and it's just laying on the ground looking at the sky where you hear interesting commentary. Of course, I probably wouldn't end up publishing it. Anyway, find him. Find him. And they're off. Anyway, put that on hold. Set that aside. When we were starting Shofar Mountain, which is not a mag, and at that time we were forming an intentional community. That was our goal, based around faith, a faith-based. This way, come on. They're after deer. A faith-based intentional community. When we were doing that, I had a good friend who really wanted to be a part of it, and for good reasons ended up not being. But he gave me a concept. And he said, before people join any kind of organization, it's important to know, how do you get in and how do you get out? When people start a group, a team, a mag, it's like the honeymoon. They're all happy, and it's like, yeah, this is awesome, and we'll do this, and we'll do this, and we'll do this. And Is it? Hey, come on. And nobody ever talks about what happens when this doesn't work out. And my friend's point was, and I have bought into it, hook, line, and sinker is all that has to be clear before the group actually forms. What's it take to join? What happens when you quit? And that has to be understood by everyone. This shouldn't be the kind of thing that you try and do on the fly, because if you do, feelings are going to be hurt. Feelings are probably going to be hurt anyway. All right, let's go this way, dogs. Feelings are probably going to be hurt. There's our creek. Anyway, but it's better if it's all understood. This is how it goes when you leave the mag, the crew, the team. This is what happens. I suggest writing it down. I suggest with your initial startup, we're going this way, dogs. With your initial startup, all the people who are forming this crew mag team get together and decide what that looks like. What's it take to get in? What's it take to get out? And that will probably be the subject of another video. But in this case, I'll just give you some personal examples. We have clearly a team, a crew, a mag based around Shofar Mountain. And Shofar Mountain is an interesting concept. I'm trying to be careful here. We are an assembly, a congregation, if you will. We all worship together. That's one level. We are a place in which various people live. That's another level. We are a place around which many people live, but still associate frequently here. And we are also a mag, a team, a crew. Those are all, what's that called, a Venn diagram? Those are all, yeah, pick that up. That's a cup there. I don't let trash on the property. Those are all overlapping groups. A body could be in one or more groups, but not necessarily all of them. We have rules, if you will, conditions that one must meet for each and every one of those overlapping areas. And one is not superior to the other. They just are. I'm going to set my coffee down. And so, because we're talking about teams, crews, and mags, for that level, we have certain entry-level requirements beyond you're an okay person. And you want to do this, we have mutual interests. That one must meet before one can consider oneself, before we consider that person part of the crew. And we're talking about what happens when you want to leave the crew. We are very upfront and clear about it. One of our requirements is food. Everyone who joins the crew has to have a certain amount of food stored here in various places, but accountable. Food stored here for their family. And it's a set amount and it's inspectable. That food belongs to that person or that family until certain things happen. But up until that point, it's theirs. Everyone must have certain pieces of equipment here. That is their equipment up until an event happens. We call it the balloon going up. Everyone has to have a hard-sided cabin structure. Some of them look like sheds, but there are minimum requirements that it must meet, so it doesn't look like a hobo camp. And that shed is not theirs. And I learned from the experience of my friend who, acquaintance who had a bad time with his Pizos. That cabin belongs to Shofar Mountain now. And that is in writing. We had a lawyer actually draw up the framework that people sign when they want to start doing this. And I know, but it's our litigious society today, so we had to. That is their cabin up until the time they decide they don't want to play anymore. At which point, it's not their cabin. It's my cabin. And that prevents things like people coming to get it back. That prevents things from, well, I'm going to sell it to these guys. Or no, if you leave, the cabin stays here. Now it's my cabin, and I'm going to give it to somebody else. Now, give. I'm not really giving it. We have had people here who were part of the MAG who decided to leave for various reasons. Moving away, job opportunities, don't like the way I don't comb my beard, whatever. But various people have left for various reasons. Most of those people left on good terms. Maybe potentially slightly strained in that you've decided to leave the group, but not as in, I hate you, man. But we have had people leave here under extremely strained conditions. We don't like you anymore. They don't like us anymore. And even in those cases, they got all their stuff back, all their food and gear that they had to have here, they got that back, and their cabin, which was now no longer their cabin, when the next people who wanted to join, and I gave them the rules, you got to have a cabin, and it has to be this quality. They said, well, what about that one right there? And I said, well, that one was built by these people. You need to contact them, and if they want to give you a good deal on it, pay him. And I said, I think he's got this much money into the cabin, and it was basically brand new, unused. And I said, so up to that much money, if he says that's what you can pay him, then that's what you need to pay him. I said, if he wants to go like double that or something ridiculous, I'll just give it to you. And you can give me the money that I said is fair, and I'll send it to him, and he can do with it what he wants. But see, even in that case, we're trying to do the right thing, right? He had X amount of money in the cabin. We want to make sure he gets X amount of money back. And as it turned out, the new guy contacted the old guy, and the old guy said, just have it. Okay, more better. So that's how that works. But you have to know who your people are. Who are you yoking yourself with? How are they going to act? And now I'm looking at it as you are the person who may be leaving, right? You have to judge them just as much as they judge you. Are they going to screw you when you try and leave? If they might, you should reconsider being part of that group. Now, I said all the food is yours, all the stuff is yours until the event. The event, which I will not define here, but we have defined to our satisfaction, these things are happening, and we call it the black flag. We hoist the black flag. The rules have changed. And we have all agreed what those conditions are. Once the rules change, the food that was put into the pot, if you will, the required food, is no longer that family's food. That food belongs now to the entire crew. That's the crew's food. And we have a means that food will then be prepared and distributed and things like that. That's a set-up process. The stuff, we live by different rules than most of the world. And so while the stuff is still yours. Let's say you brought a chainsaw. Let's say we don't have a requirement for a chainsaw, but let's say we have a requirement for a chainsaw. Everyone has to have a chainsaw. Okay, that's your chainsaw, but by God, if we need it, we, the crew, and you don't feel like using it, well, let's use Bob's instead of mine. someone will make a decision on what chainsaw we're using. And quite frankly, we would have the head chainsaw guy, and he would allocate chainsaws. So it is yours, but it's not yours. Because we have decided, that doesn't mean you have to do it, as a crew, that when the black flag goes up, things have changed, and we live, breathe, survive, or die as a crew. But generally speaking, your stuff is your stuff. You know, your pot, your mattress, your clothes, all that stuff, that's yours, man. You know, nobody wants your boots. Now, let's say the black flag has been hoisted, things are different in the world, and someone still doesn't see the beauty of being part of the crew, and they say, I'm out of here. I'm leaving, and I'm taking all my stuff. No, you're not. The rules change when the situation changes. Now, we've talked about it up front. It's not a surprise. Anybody here ever see, you probably got to be my age to have seen it, The Road Warrior with Mel Gibson? It was his first real movie. Mad Max was before that, but that was not a great movie. Anyway, he makes a deal, the Road Warrior makes a deal with a guy that if he gets him back to the safety of his tribe, they'll give him all the gas he can put in his car and he can be on his way. So he gets the guy back and the guy dies. And he's like, hey, I'm out of here, man. Give me the gas so I can go. And the guy says, hey, whatever deal you made with him, died with him. Yeah. For us, it's really going to depend on the person leaving as to what he gets back, he or she or they get back. Well, it's all going to depend on the council. The council will decide what they get. Very likely, they will not get their entire food allocation. Number one, they wouldn't be able to carry it. How much we give them really depends on the council. That'll be a council decision, and that depends on a lot of things: attitudes, reasons, situation, and that is not hard and fast. But we tell everybody up front, you may not get any of it back. Maybe there's the gate. See ya. Don't let it hit you on the way out. It could get even darker than that, but I don't talk about that here. So there's that. You die, we split up your stuff. I thought where they were going to go in the video, and again, this is Steve at Prepping in Progress. I'll put a link down below to the channel. I'll put it to the video. You can go to the channel from there. I thought where they were going to go is there's a family, and somebody dies in the family. What do we do with their stuff? You know, there's some weird tribal stuff that goes on out there, like in real tribes. And the way I look at it, we look at things as households. You know, if the dad dies, the mom now owns all the stuff. It's hers, right? She just became a widow. It's her stuff. She makes decisions, that kind of thing. But again, it could be different on your group, how that works. I'll wrap it up with this because we're going a little long. These are the kinds of things you need to decide before you get in. Before you get in, you got to know how you're going to get out. You got to know what that's going to look like. And everybody has to be cool with it. Everybody has to say, yep, I agree to these terms on getting in. And it doesn't have to be anything like the way I do it. We do it. Doesn't have to be. You can be totally different. As long as it works for you, it works for you. Bottom line. You need, hush, whiny pants. You need to have a crew. You need to start getting it together and figuring it out now so you don't just end up like all the movies like to portray. You just fall in with the people you meet on the side of the road and try to make life from there. Yeah. Things to think about. All right. When you die, we're splitting up your stuff. I'll see you out there.